All right, well, I've got temperature implemented. Ended up doing a bunch of math and then not liking the math. And so I now have a lookup table with 120 elements for the temperatures between minus 40 and 75 or 80 degrees Celsius. The reason being, we have a ton of free space on this microcontroller. We're only using, I think, 8%, maybe 9% of the space now. But the temperature calculation ended up being 3 multiplies, 2 of which were floating point. I think it was 3 divisions and a log lookup. So having to look up the natural log added 5K of space. So that alone was 5 times more space than just making a lookup table. So I left all the math in the code so you can see it, and then I just added a lookup table. But right now I've got the temperature sensors. Here I've got 2 of them in this ice water. You can see it's measuring at 3 degrees Celsius there, which is probably actually fairly close because it's not actually frozen. It's ice and water anyway. If it's only accurate to within 3 degrees, I don't really care. At the end of the day, that's good enough for cooling and warming a battery. And then on the high end, I've got so the temperature's not fully implemented. Eventually I need to write the code to figure out which is the highest temperature sensor. So right now I've just said, hey look, Bay 1 is the high sensor, and I think the Bay 3 is the low sensor. I don't actually remember, it might be the white temperature sensor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I will be able to figure that out. It's 5 a.m. I'm tired. Anyway, so yeah, we're up to 29 degrees C here, so that's nice. Other stuff, of course the time is now in seconds, as I mentioned before. This overflows at every 18 hours it will reset, and that's when you leave the key on for 18 hours, it will reset. Yeah, I've got the current sensor implemented as well. One thing I want to point out, if a value doesn't update on the screen, so it has like kk.k or ccc here, that's because the value hasn't changed. These values do have to change before we update them because there's a huge time penalty to updating these values, so if they haven't changed, we don't update them. Anyway, so my current sensor is not, there's no current going through it, the battery voltage isn't changing, so they aren't updating. That's the reason why, if you're curious why that is. Anyway, yeah, so the temperature stuff is done. I think that's the last feature that wasn't implemented in any way whatsoever. So I think that we are, the skeleton for every feature is now complete. Now, of course, the features themselves are not complete in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, we now have temperature. That'll be good for the cooling off that's happening now. We're supposed to get below freezing for the first time here next week, so hopefully I can get this out before then. If you're not familiar, you don't want to, you can damage the batteries when they're too cold and you're trying to force current into them, so you limit the amount of regen. Anyway, don't need to get too in the weeds on that, but anyway, yeah, we'll have temperature here, and so I now can measure the temperature. I don't have a calibrated temperature source, so I'm using kind of intrinsic standards here, ice water. I have a thermal imager, so I think tomorrow maybe I can heat up some water. I can't heat it up to boiling because these temperature sensors don't go that high. They only go up to 75 degrees C. But I'll see if I can heat one up to like 65 degrees C, and then see if it's 65 C with the imager, and then dunk a sensor in there and see. At the end of the day, the temperature doesn't need to be that accurate. In fact, I'm using the same beta constants for these thermistors across both of them. So both the battery ones, which we're adding, and then the OEM ones, and they actually have slightly different values. Again, I don't care. They might be accurate to within 2 degrees. I don't have a way to measure that accuracy to within 2 degrees, so there's no reason to make a new equation. Anyway, that is temperature. Probably accurate to within 2 or 3 degrees at the end of the day. It is, I do know it with pretty good certainty that it is 23 degrees or thereabouts in here. It's 72 degrees Fahrenheit in this room right now. That's pretty well regulated. There's actually a dedicated unit for this room. So anyway, the temperature is working well enough. I'm not going to really look into it a whole lot more. At the end of the day, if it's off 3, even 4, 5 degrees, I don't care. Celsius. That doesn't really matter in battery world. Eventually it'd be nice to see what it actually is. Not right now. I don't care. Knowing the temperature to within 5 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius rather, is much better than not having a clue what the temperature is whatsoever. So we'll leave it for that for now, and then yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching as always. I'm gonna go to bed.